Alrighty, so something I covered last week is appearing to come to fruition already. This ex-NATO Secretary General, who's been hired as a lobbyist by Ukraine to go around and pressure NATO into going to war against Russia on Ukraine's behalf, he had forecast, I guess you could say, that Poland was the most open to Ukraine's demands, and that they thought that Poland was their, essentially their best ally, who would go around whipping up support for what they ultimately seek, which is NATO troops, boots on the ground, as they say, fighting hand to hand with the Ruskies in Ukraine. Now, today, the president of Poland, Mr. Duda, he gave them something that is perhaps even more provocative, although that's arguable. I guess on the level of escalation, on the escalation escalator, this is a few steps behind boots on the ground in Ukraine. But then again, he's being kind of vague. I think I know what he's getting at, but he didn't directly state it, so we have to interpret his words a little bit. This is just breaking news, like within the last 10 minutes. President Duda is in France with Macron, and he has said that NATO needs to respond to Russia putting nukes in Belarus. Now, Belarus was a Soviet republic. It is Russia's closest ally, and frankly, Belarus would not exist without Putin and Russia's support. Belarus was recently the target of a regime change operation launched by the U.S. It failed because Putin and Russia intervened on Lukashenko's behalf. Lukashenko, I believe, is the only leader in the whole former communist bloc who is still around from the days of the Soviet Union. And that's not to say, you have guys like Putin and Orban who have ties, to the communist era and were active in the Communist Party. But Lukashenko, I believe, he was the party boss in Belarus at the time that the Soviet Union collapsed, and he has managed to hold on to power this whole time. So anyway, fast forward, and Russia is putting nukes in Belarus. A country that's right next door to them. Should that be very surprising? No. Should it be outrageous? No, probably not. I mean, we, the United States, have put nukes all around the world. We had nukes in Turkey at one point. We've got nukes in, at the very least, Germany now, probably, right? I should have looked that up. But, I mean, we've got nukes everywhere. I didn't need to look it up. Russia puts nukes in one other country, and now Poland is trying to use that as a an excuse, I guess, or maybe a justification, if you want to be generous, to beg America to put nukes in Poland. Now, Poland did have nukes in the past. They had nukes when they were under the jurisdiction of the Soviet Union. But I guess they missed those days, and they want to be a part of global nuclear geostrategy. But then again, I'm inferring this because Duda, at least in the reports I've seen, maybe there'll be more detailed reports that come out later, he did not explicitly say, hey, this is the reason why we want nukes. But Duda's been calling for Poland to get nukes for quite a while now. And, this Ukraine war has been as good of a justification as any. And as things just continue to get worse, he just keeps saying, hey, see, this is why Poland needs nukes. Because I guess we just want a North-South Korea situation. We want a DMZ between Belarus and Russia where they're just both pointing nukes at each other. That's just a great way to build trust in world peace, isn't it? Since he was vague, though, I mean, we could also interpret this as Duda showing support for putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. All he's saying, pretty much, is that NATO needs to escalate. They need to answer. He sees this as an escalation. Russia putting nukes in Belarus, and he says that NATO needs to escalate as well. Okay, well, there's only really two things that I can think of that are left to do. I mean, NATO's already 100% bankrolling Ukraine. Ukraine is 100% a U.S. proxy state. We pay the payroll of their government employees, and we pay for all of their weapons. The only thing that the U.S. is not supplying, in limitless amounts is human capital. They're getting, Ukraine's getting certainly advisors and CIA people running things, and they're getting special forces folks from the U.S. in their country, but they're not getting U.S. grunts. Everything else, though, America's written them a blank check. Now, there is a third option. First two options, Poland wants nukes for themselves. Second option, Poland wants boots on the ground in Ukraine. The third option, I guess, could be giving nukes to Zelensky in Ukraine, but that's so insane that I can't even contemplate that. And I think that Duda is more interested in what's best for Poland than Ukraine. I think that Poland is definitely in this for themselves, and that they see Ukraine as a useful pawn. But anyway, I think that this is definitely related to what that Ukrainian lobbyist was talking about last week. This definitely seems to be Poland acting as an ambassador for escalation. And whatever Poland is able to achieve, I would imagine that Ukraine will see that as a positive thing for them, even if it's just Poland getting nukes, which would be insane. And even though it doesn't directly help Ukraine, it's a step on the escalation escalator. As NATO does more and more things like that, they run out of options. They run out of things that they can do as an act of escalation until they're down to the very last option, which is putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. Or after that, giving Ukraine nuclear weapons. But thankfully, I don't think, even if the worst comes to worst, I don't think that'll happen. I think that World War III will commence and the human race will be erased from this planet before Ukraine gets nuclear weapons. So on that happy note, I will see you folks back here tomorrow for what I believe is Trump's arraignment down in Miami. I don't know if they actually call it an arraignment, but it's whatever. He's been summoned to federal court, I guess, to make his plea. Yeah, so that's an arraignment, right? And then they'll have to decide whether or not to give him bail. I assume he will be granted bail. It would be quite... I would just add insult to injury if they try and lock him up for the entire election. I'll certainly have a lot more to say about that tomorrow.